I thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm extremely pleased to be here this morning. All of us have these opportunities, and this one I particularly look forward to because this is one of the extraordinary persons that I've been privileged to serve with in my now 29 years here in the United States Senate. She was on the staff of the Armed Services Committee following service with our distinguished colleague, Senator Craig, for well over 2 years. She's also a resident of my state, and for that reason, in addition to her career, I'm happy to be here. She was a senior policy advisor to Senator Craig. I interviewed her at that time for the position on our staff. Senator Craig warmly endorsed her, and it all worked out extraordinarily well. Not well known in some quarters, but the Armed Services Committee has jurisdiction over approximately 2/3 of the budget of the Department of Energy, including the very sizable nuclear weapons production sites and laboratory complex, as well as the extensive environmental program to clean up the legacy of nuclear contamination created during the Cold War era. These are programs which we engaged Christine to work on our staff. With her extensive background and experience in nuclear matters, both at the Department of Energy and subsequently in her work in the Senate, she ably discharged her responsibilities, very, very ably, I might say. Her service has been appreciated not only by me, but the other members of the Armed Services Committee, including our distinguished ranking member of this committee. I recall the first interview with this outstanding nominee, and she informed me a little bit about her family. And I'd like to mention that because it strikes me as the very pillars of the foundation of our great nation, what her family did. Her grandfather had come from their native country of Slovakia in the early part of the last century. He worked off the cost of his passage in the iron mines of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. He saved up enough money to bring his wife and daughters to America, and Christine's father was born in this country after the family were reunited in Michigan. Ms. Svenke's father served with distinction in the Army's 5th Infantry Division in Europe during World War II, earning 2 Bronze Stars for distinguished valor in combat. His service secured for him the opportunity to attend college under the GI Bill, the first in his family to do so. Now, I mentioned to the nominee when she greeted me this morning that I was going to tweak her a little bit. In these 2.5 years, I expect you've been in my office probably 30 or 40 times. And on the wall is a picture of my father, who served in World War II, likewise wounded and decorated, and in World War I, and he served in the 5th Division. And you never told me about the story of your father having succeeded my father in the 5th Division. Now, following in her father's footsteps, she went on to college, choosing to major in nuclear engineering at the University of Michigan. I inquired of her during the first interview as to why she would have majored in nuclear engineering in college. I recall that she commented to me that because she had lost both of her parents when she was still quite young, a teenager, she had wanted to honor their memories by cherishing the value they held highest, which was education in the sciences. Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, this is a very able nominee of the President, and I urge the committee to confirm this nominee and send her name to the floor, where I'll be privileged to once again address the Senate on your behalf. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Senator Warner. Senator Craig.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. I've got the unique opportunity this morning of being amongst friends on both sides of me here and very talented people, but I am here specifically to introduce you to Christine Svenke, who, as Chairman Warner has said, served on my staff as a senior policy advisor for 7 years prior to going to the Armed Services Committee. and you've heard a good deal of her background. And I must tell you, when you can get the support of the diversity of a Craig, a Warner, and a McCain in your person, that's, I think, speaks fairly highly, because we are all very different people around here. But I would like to approach her nomination to you this morning, Madam Chairman, in this way. I don't know of another time in our country when we need on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission some very unique talents. As you know, from the establishment of the Energy Policy Act of 2005 until today, when there was not one nuclear reactor on the drawing board, there are now some 35 or 37. And clearly, for this country to get back into the business of building nuclear generating reactors in a way that our country and our economy demands it, we're going to need a very strong Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And the personalities that make up the commission, I believe, are going to have to be multitask capable. What do I mean by that? They're going to have background in the nuclear energy industry itself. They're going to have knowledge of it. They're also going to have knowledge of the public policy that we have shaped to drive that industry at the rate that it appears to be driven today. The new concepts of licensing that we're trying to perfect, not unlike other countries around the world have, that bring us back into this business, are going to be tremendously important. And Christine brings that uniqueness to the Commission. She's worked here on the Hill, she's worked in policy, she's helped shape a good deal of that policy while she was with me, before she went over to the Armed Services Committee with Senator Warner. And all of those experiences, I think, are very unique combinations that make her a highly qualified person. And so when the President nominated her, I was, to say the least, very pleased and excited. Sure, have somebody who had been on my staff is a pleasing kind of thing, but I've been under the evil eye of Christine for a long while. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. No, I mean the very instructive, clear-thinking eye of Christine for a long while, who would say it the way it was, in a very frank and forthright manner, in a way that was always appreciated by me while she was working with me on the committee and on my personal staff. And so when I look at those combinations, and having been somebody who has helped shape the policy that is now driving us in a direction that takes us from the 104 commercial reactors that are out there today, that she would have immediate jurisdiction over, and the 4,000-plus licensees that handle radioactive materials in our country. But to take it a step further into a whole new generation is going to take the uniqueness of talent that I think Christine has demonstrated to me, and is a blend of those experiences. So I speak very highly of her to this committee, and hope, as the Senator Warner does, that we can handle her expeditiously and take her to the Senate desk for our consideration. And lastly, let me say that my experience with Lyle Lafferty, who sits to my immediate left here as the Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife and Parks, has been a tremendously positive one over the years. I don't know of anyone who brings to this nomination the credentials that Lyle has, and I highly recommend him. He and I worked on the Continental Divide National Trail System. We worked on fire issues over the years, and the West is burning today. Maybe you ought to be out fighting fire, Lyle, and not here in front of this committee, but it's the nature of the process. So I certainly can recommend both of these people with their skills and their talents to this committee without reservation. And again, I feel very privileged to be here speaking of on Christine's behalf as it relates to the position she's aspiring to. Thank you, Madam Chairman.